Now that's significant. The Market Research Podcast.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us on this latest episode of Now That's Significant, a market research podcast. This is your host, Michael Howard, the Head of Marketing at InfoTools. Today, we're joined by Sabrina Trinquetel, UK Sales Director at Measure Protocol, a behavioural data collection organisation. Sabrina is an insight and sales professional with a passion for great research. She has held leadership roles at some of the top market research companies in the world over the past 10 years and is committed to bettering the industry while also focusing on growth initiatives for Measure. She is co-chair of the Market Research Society's Pride Group and co-hosts its OUTsights podcast. She also sits on the MRS's DI&E Council and Representation and Research Steering Group. When she's not working, she spends time trying to make her young son laugh and occasionally pops up on hospital radio, which is awesome. Thanks for joining us on the show today, Sabrina.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
So what's the most significant thing you're going to tell us today?
So I guess I just wanted to take a step back and just review. There's just a few kind of pressing issues that I think are quite prevalent, I guess, within the market research industry as a whole at the moment. And although they kind of feel a little bit dispersed, they actually kind of all lead back to kind of empowering ourselves and our clients to produce kind of the highest quality data that we possibly can. And the idea of that is to better the insights because, you know, there's some of the most challenging times are ahead of us, and businesses, governments, everyone who are in positions of making decisions need to have high quality and kind of new thinking to support that decision making. And so I wanted to cover a few ideas off that list. So one of the things that I thought would be really interesting to kind of focus on is how we actually collect some of that data. Obviously historically there's been a change in the methodologies that we use over time. And at the moment, we're in a kind of online focus, lots of online surveys, and there's a bit of fatigue around that. But how can we use different technologies to help do a better job of some of that data collection? And then connected to that is also the idea of revisiting who is doing the research to collect that data, and are they the most inclusive and diverse group of people that we should have in those positions, and also the people that we're actually speaking to and asking those questions of, are they representative of the right groups that we need to, as I said, kind of we need to help answer some of those challenges. So nothing too big or grandiose, nothing too big that we're solving today. But yeah, I think that they all feed into kind of driving better quality insight for our decisions.
Yeah, well, there's I'm definitely hearing you there. There's some good juicy bits that we can discuss within that in both of those two main areas that you discussed there. Data quality is such a relevant topic at the moment, as you said. So many of our clients are grappling with this issue. You could argue everyone is. It's just something you can't rest on your laurels with either, because a ship turns slowly, veers off course, so too can data quality. But there is that one exception, which is data privacy. If we draw out that ship analogy a little further, any slip up with data privacy could make that whole ship pivot at right angles or even 180, but in an instant almost. So how are you seeing organizations grapple with that issue?
Yeah, I mean, it's really tricky, especially when we think about how quickly things are changing within different industries, and also the perception of privacy, I guess, for consumers and the general public. And we did a piece of work at Measure a few years ago, just looking at what people felt about their data. Did they feel that they could kind of trust the people they were giving their data to. And there's lots of stats and stuff out there about this, there's the trust barometers and things like that. But we were looking at kind of surveys in particular and whether people felt that they were concerned about the privacy of their data when they fill out surveys. And actually, like 1 in 2 people, so like 50% of people, are concerned about the fact that they're not sure, I guess, what people are doing with their data when they give it away. And connected to that is also the idea that actually, if they felt that their data was more protected and they did feel like they trusted that business or that company, then they're more willing to actually share data. So 60% were more willing to share further data with companies. And I guess that kind of comes back to, there's a lot of changes, I guess, within, you can see within Apple and within other organizations as large as them, starting to listen and starting to hear about, okay, we need to kind of really focus in on how we communicate some of these things to our customers. Are we are we happy with just doing the status quo, or are we going to take this as a position and a position of power almost, and lead the market and say, actually, we're happy to kind of give you back the control of where your data lies and what happens to it. And people are, will react in ways to that. So, with Apple, that, you can see that the effect of that. But also with the research that we were doing, for example, we can see that people are happier to share more and different types of data. So actually, it's that, beneficial, it's mutually beneficial for both parties. Yeah, so it's very complex, but I think within market research, we really need to step up to the mark on this, because it's only going to get consumers are only going to get more and more questioning, and asking for these types of regulations to be in place.
So you talked about Apple just then, and they've got very much a consumer-centric, you could even argue a privacy-first design sort of way of working. And I'm assuming something that you have as well at Measure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we took these challenges which we saw in the market around privacy, around quality, trust, and started to redesign, I guess, how we approach that to tackle some of those issues. So our design of our platform, which is it's a network of people that we've created through a mobile application, and it's a privacy first design. And so, without going into all the detail of what that means, ultimately it means that people have control of their own data, and so that data sits with them, and they have the ability to choose whether they want to share that or not. So everything is completely transparent, everything is in their control, and we as a kind of facilitator kind of sit between the user and the participant and the brand and the client. So we're not we don't hold data as, for example, some of the historical kind of panel platforms might do. Yeah, sure. And the reflection of that is really that, like I said, people really actually appreciate that difference. They're willing to give more, they give higher quality data, and we also make sure that we pay them really fairly as well, so that we're not ripping them off in that sense. We do things like, for example, if we collect part of their data at one time and then we reuse that data another time down the road, we kind of pay them like a royalty almost on that data. Yeah. So there's lots of aspects I think that we can do better in as an industry.
Yeah, one of our previous episodes we talked about almost there being this Uber of market research data and sampling, etc. So yeah, you go in and you just pull in what you need, and you go for a ride. You get what both people get what they need out of it.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, exactly. We're just kind of, like I said, we're the facilitator, I guess, between those two things.
Yeah.
And it means that everyone feels like they're not being taken advantage of, and they think that's quite a shift. I'm not saying that in research we take advantage of people, but we do kind of I guess assume that people will give whatever they want to give, and they don't mind about that, which is not necessarily the case. So yeah, I guess there's lots of learnings around that.
Oh, sure. Now, so privacy issues aren't new. They've just been thrust into the limelight over the past decade or so. Technology has been one of the major causes of this, but it's also one of the solutions too. What do insight functions then have to benefit when taking a proactive stance on privacy?
Yeah, I think that there's lots of benefits, and like I said, one is just is the trust that you build from the research, from the participants that you have. So the trust that we have means that we have lower churn rates in terms of the people that we speak to. We've got much higher response rates, much higher engagement rates, and so we know that we're not going to have to, it's a more efficient, machine basically. So you're obviously got that cost benefit, but also you can start to then think about more in-depth data, because you're able to rely on the fact that some of these people will be here for quite a long time. So you can start to look kind of longitudinally at their behavior, and all of that really means is that you're getting more kind of unique data points that just potentially in the past wouldn't have been available, wouldn't have been accessible, I guess, for you. So that then obviously then feeds into how you can different ways that you can ask questions, and different kind of conclusions and insights that you can kind of get from what you're collecting. The key thing, I guess, for us is that we really focus on a technology that reduces inaccuracies in collection. So, there's lots of technologies out there which help to kind of nudge, I guess, us into better kind of quality data collection. And one of the things that we try and do is employ like a show, don't tell policy. So if someone can show you something without having to tell you that something, then why wouldn't you ask them to do that, rather than them having to try and remember something that they may not be able to. So for example, if I don't know if you've got Netflix, but if I was gonna ask you, in the last week, what were the shows that you watched, on TV or on Netflix? I might need to give you a few minutes, but like it would be hard for you to remember all of those things that you were watching, and yet we still ask people that kind of question quite often. What did you buy last week, or where did you go, and those kinds of things. And so if we have the technologies, because as a consumer we can see those things quite easily, so why can't we as a market research industry also utilize those technologies to pull out that data? So that's kind of what we try to focus on, is reducing the inaccuracies. So we have a product which we call Retro, and it's just a behavioral data collection tool. And it just allows you to extract, well, it's not, extract is actually not the right word. It allows you to kind of see and process a lot more different types of data, like your Netflix viewing or your Amazon shopping, without having to ask people to remember that.
Yeah, nice. So, I've been in the tech scene for a while, and one of the things that I've really picked up and noticed that our role as technology providers is not to create really cool technology, it's to make it disappear. So,
Yeah.
if you can resolve someone's problems by essentially making them feel like they're not even using technology, then you're winning. So,
Yeah, exactly. And we have a habit as researchers to kind of, we want all the detail, we want to know all of the, give us all of it, and then we'll go and, you know, have a look at it and delve and swim around in data because we like to do that. But we have to, I guess, appreciate that participants, like people, are not up for always doing that, and they want to potentially get through things quickly and easily. And this task-based approach, which is what we employ, allows you to do something very quickly, and also get an actually accurate figure of what's going on. And just to kind of connect back to the point around privacy, because we're actually asking people to do a task, it means that they're 100% fully aware of everything that they're providing to us, rather than it being anything kind of in the background, and that they might forget about, or they're not really sure what they're actually sending over.
yeah. So this is quite a good segue because I've got something in my mind here. We've talked about data privacy, which impacts on all forms of data. Now I think right time to start talking about the quality of data. So at the moment, the market's seen a lot of really poor samples, and we've been talking to some people. They're noticing between 40 to 60% of the data that they have is bad samples that they've had, bad actors in their processes, and that's a huge amount of investment. You want to have greater confidence in what you're getting.
Yeah.
So what tools then are available for insights teams to be able to improve this quality?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, it's hard to, people within the research industry are aware of some of these challenges, and obviously it's hard to kind of break out of some of the status quo of how we do research, because sometimes you just need the right people at the right time. But I think that the more that we can kind of, I guess, nudge towards doing parts and then hopefully all things slightly more accurately would be great. And yeah, the challenges around kind of straight liners, or people just like, professional survey takers kind of just running through surveys and things, are real genuine concerns. And so kind of, I guess that's kind of links back to kind of what I was saying in terms of using and searching out technologies that help you to cut back on the reason that you need to ask someone something. So if there are elements that you can just show, someone can just show you, or you can pull through in an API, or any other kind of aspects, then those are the ones that you need to employ. Especially like, there's some experiences of kind of doing continuous like online trackers, and you're asking like 30-minute questionnaires, and people are getting fatigued at the end of them, and they're just want to get through it, and they're not being paid very well. So this all is conducive, I guess, to more inaccurate data. And yeah, I guess one of the key things that we try to do is focus on how we can get more unique types of data that help to answer different types of questions. So for example, using the same technology, we are able to, and coming back to Apple, we're able to actually review what kind of iOS behavior is happening, rather than asking people, what are you doing on your phone? What are you looking at? What kinds of apps are you using? We're able to actually collect that privacy first, all transparently, all above board, through thousands of people, and understand their kinds of mobile behavior, which is incredibly important, because we use our mobiles all the time and for everything. And so to understand what a person's kind of profile is and what they're interested in, actually all you have to do is really look at kind of what apps you use and what are you spending your time on. Do you have a group of investment apps? Do you have like gardening apps? Are you interested in cooking? Are you interested in, gaming? And how much are you spending on gaming? And what kinds of things are you buying when you're gaming? That kind of thing. So we can look inside apps as well to understand some of that detail, which again, you don't need to then ask anyone any of those questions. And it's getting quite a lot of unique types of data that you really wouldn't have access to in other ways.
No, sure. Yeah, I always get a reminder every week on how much I'm using my phone, and I'm like, no, that's not right.
Exactly. I mean, I had to delete TikTok because it was just killing me.
Oh, nice. So look, we've sorted, I guess, as a follow-up to this, of all the tools that are available to teams, what tools and technology are actually being adopted now? Is there a delta between what's available and what people are actually using? And if so, what do you think might be causing this?
Yeah, I think there probably is a delta. I think there's a lot of different technologies out there. You only have to kind of start searching for, AI or behavioral data or anything, and there's a lot of potential like tools that you could be using. I think one of the key things is probably it's kind of what is always tricky is change, really. So when you have a process that you've already set up, and let's say you've got these trackers running, and then you start to introduce new methodologies and new technologies, that there's going to be that disconnect, I guess, on some of the data sources, and that can cause concerns around people not wanting to change. And I think that we need to kind of start to be a bit braver and weigh up some of those pros and cons. So yes, there might be a slight kind of difference in because you're using a different methodology, but what is the benefit? The benefit is that you're getting someone not pretending to remember, but actually the actual data. So then you can rely much more heavily on what that is and make far more kind of concerted and strong decisions made based on that. So I think the benefits outweigh, but I think some of the kind of, I guess, concerns will be, well, there's always concerns with new things. So there's, is this worth changing for? And I think it really depends on, of course, it's going to be dependent on the types of projects and what's available. But there's always the option to do trials. There's always the option to start to integrate some of these things in. So I would hope that, most agencies nowadays have a team or some people who look at some of those new technologies to start to involve them into integrate them into what they're doing already.
Yeah, cool. So it's like this and
because it's never going to take over everything, but it will help to move things forward and change the game a little bit.
Yeah, cool. So with privacy's all sorted, we've got all the tools in place to get all the insights we need and affect positive change in the business. Now all we need are respondents. That's the easy part, right, Sabrina?
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, so I guess as an industry, we also are aware that, like I was saying at the beginning, we may have become a little bit reliant, I guess, on certain types of data collection and therefore certain ways of doing things. 100%, if you don't have the right people that you're asking the questions to, the data that you're going to get and the insight that comes from that is going to be skewed towards the status quo almost. So if you're always asking the same types of people, then you're never going to really review any wider challenges that might have fallen out of that scope.
I think the Mick Jagger Prince Charles meme went around a while, didn't it? If you segment it up by certain people live in a castle, etc., those two people
Right.
would stand side by side with each other. So
Exactly. Yeah. So there are so many other aspects that you need to kind of review. And obviously, it's hard to kind of always look at everything. But I think one of the key things that, the work that we're doing at the MRS in the UK, so the market research industry, is that really focusing in on what do we mean, for example, when we say nat rep. Like, who are we including in a nationally representative sample? And is that the right, are those the right attributes to still be thinking about in today's kind of society with today's types of challenges, or tomorrow's types of challenges, in fact? So there's a group there's actually a council group that's set up around kind of diversity, inclusion and equality. And within that, there's a group called Representation in Research. And one of the key focuses for that group this year is to review kind of what the lay of the land looks like at the moment. So what kinds of things people are including when they think about nat rep, but also it's not just about nat rep, but that's a good example in terms of, if we believe that something is representative, and you're making product decisions or business decisions off the back of that, but you're not necessarily including the full range of people who do represent this country, for example. So at the moment, the requirement around that rep is to think about age, gender, and region. But the argument is that actually there are a number of other aspects around ethnicity, sexuality, and also ability that should also be relevant to research when you think about the types of people who are in the country that you want to speak to. So that's kind of the key focus at the moment, and it's really interesting to understand, like you were saying, it comes back to kind of, if you want to only have a single view, I guess, of where your business should go, and you start to ignore some of the other kind of voices in the room, then you're potentially creating products, creating decisions based on the needs of only some people rather than of a wider variety of people within the country. And so hopefully later in this year there'll be more news around that. And there's so many bits around that, the commercial benefits of it as well, and all sorts of stuff. So
cool. What about from an internal point of view then? What can research teams be doing better to drive greater results from a DEI perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's three parts of this, isn't there? There's like the people that you have in your business and you employ, and who are writing the questionnaires, that are looking at the challenges, analyzing the data, bringing the insight to the table. And then there's the two other parts that we've already spoken about there, what the kind of methodologies you're using to feed into that, and then the participants that you're actually asking. And I guess maybe arguably they're all very important, but arguably if you don't have a diverse group of people at the front end to even design the research and ask the right people and make the right changes, then potentially you're kind of setting yourself up for failure in that sense, because you need people at the front end to kind of say, actually, we need to have a more representative group that we're asking. We need to think about different ways of pulling through this methodology and all that stuff. So the idea is that that if you focus on driving diversity and inclusion within your businesses, you're going to have so many benefits from that. And it's not just a good thing to do. There are lots of benefits in terms of employee, retention, the types of work that people produce, and also the types of ideas that come to the table, which are going to be quite different depending on who you have in the room. And these are all there's lots of stats and proven stuff out there around, having diverse people on the board and things like that. So it makes sense that as an industry that represents, we're here to represent the voices, I guess, of the people in a certain sense, that we should have that opinion and have those voices in the room, so that we make sure we don't forget people, we don't dampen down some of those opinions and voices.
For sure. So going to try something brand new for the podcast today, a thought experiment, which will be quite interesting. So let's imagine an organization has the ability to change its entire structure, mission, values, workforce. It can change everything in an instant. Now, this organization is embarking on a study. It's come to a fork in the path, and down one path, it completes this study as a large corporate who is the antithesis of DE&I. So it hasn't done anything to be diverse, equal, or inclusive. Down the second path, it changes itself completely in an instant. It's truly diverse, equal, and inclusive. What differences would you expect to see between these two organizations as they go down their various paths?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is really interesting. I think that there would be a huge number of differences, and I think even without sounding kind of exaggerating, potentially the business that doesn't employ these changes may not be around for very long, in the future. I guess there's a number of aspects which there's pressure, I guess, from inside the industry, but also externally from society and culture, where we are now starting to realize that by not moving with the times and not acknowledging some of these aspects, there will be repercussions. And so I'm not scaremongering, but I guess there will be a point where a company that isn't taking on some of these things is going to really have to reevaluate. Anyway, but through the thought experiment of thinking, a company that is taking on all of the aspects of diversity and inclusion, so the positive sides of things, I guess, we would expect to see, number one, I would expect to think about the employee culture and retention and experience. And I would expect that to be, very good, that people would be happy to stay around longer. They'd be happy to bring more to themselves to the job. They would be happy to give more and be confident enough to bring more ideas to the table as well. And it's about that idea of creating safe spaces within industry, within business, that people are happy to provide their opinion, and they think that will be listened to. And just because I'm a woman or I'm not white, then I can still have a voice at the table that will be heard. And so, and I'm just going to do a quick plug, because we did a little piece of research last year looking at the experiences of people within an ethnic minority group and a LGBTQ plus group, and just some of the it was a qual piece, and some of the quotes that we got back were things like people were spending time thinking about how people would perceive them, what kinds of things they needed to say, in a social way to like not raise any eyebrows or whatever. And so if you're creating space where people are spending too much time thinking about other things other than what you want them to, which is the work, that's not beneficial for anyone, and so it's that kind of thing that kind of I think would be a place where there'd be higher innovation, because you'd be thinking in more unique ways. There's more different types of voices in the room, and people are more confident to speak about them. Lower recruitment rates, all that kind of thing. And so that's I guess one aspect. And then the second aspect that reflects then on your clients and your work. So if you've got all this great innovation and great thinking and positive people, your clients are highly likely to stick around with you and be happy with the service that you're providing. So that also helps you with your revenue, with your retention rates, with your growth rates. So all of those aspects, I guess, feed into one another. I guess there's lots more efficiencies just generally around the business, where you don't have to, I guess, spend time on things that you didn't need to worry about. So, if you think about kind of, I don't know, the structure of your training program or like other aspects like that, you would assume that everyone would be kind of up to speed and aware of like all the types of challenges that other people kind of face, and you maybe didn't need to do all of that kind of training and support and all of that stuff. And I also think that there would be a more positive reflection on not sound grandiose, but a more positive reflection on society, because you're creating a really great environment, which then all of these people have homes to go to and friends and social places. So they go out and they reflect that outside as well. And so that helps to, change perception and change views wider than just your business. So that would be the kind of view I would say from a kind of fully up to speed, full on inclusive environment.
Yeah, I had a talk. It's a podcast coming up, so it's been pushed out into the future, but essentially it was talking about imagining a world without market research, and we actually play a really key role in helping improve the quality of life for people, and as you said, we're like the rising tide. When the work we do help all the boats to rise, so it's pretty cool. So
yeah, definitely. And then I think for the company that doesn't employ those things, it's just going to be kind of like the opposite of, all those positive aspects. So, employee retention might be lower. You might have less kind of focus and less, positive attitudes at work. You might have more issues with, just generally like behavior and lack of productivity. And all of those aspects which feed into kind of the employee experience, and then that can also reflect, and I think particularly around like I said at the very beginning, the types of challenges that businesses are going to bring to market research and the industry are going to significantly shift, I think, in the future, because the wider challenges within the world are getting much bigger, much harder to address. And so we need to and so those businesses that don't have a variety of people, a diverse variety, and are not inclusive, are not going to be able to step up to that mark. The clients will come and be like, you do have something around this type of challenge, and actually if you've only got the stage kind of thinking that you had 20, 30, 40 years ago, it's going to be hard for you to adapt as a business to those changing challenges. And that's going to reflect on the rest of your growth and your business. So yeah, maybe you won't be there in 10, 20 years.
Oh, sure. So thank you for those thoughts on that. It was quite an interesting discussion. So look, if I can recap what we've talked about today, it's essentially how data quality is so much more than just the quality of our data, and there's so much that goes into making sure that's right. So the need to be cognizant of the fact data privacy has to be at the front and center of our efforts. If it's not, we won't just have any trust with respondents or the market, etc. Our research will then mean it won't result in much except maybe a loss of reputation within the organization. We discussed privacy first design and how organizations are achieving this and what the results are if they do. We talked about the need to be a truly diverse and equal and inclusive business, not just because it's the right thing to do, but also because our insights are going to be far more effective and representative of the world. I think the part that you talked about there about the social graces and us going out is probably even more prevalent with a lot of the world still working from home. If we're unhappy at work, if we're like pushed down, we take that home with us as well, which is pretty scary. Yeah. So exactly. There's definitely a motivation to do the right thing there. And we undertook that little thought experiment as well to see the difference between the two organizations who either truly embraced or continue doing things as they were. So thank you so much for being on the show with us today.
No worries. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I thought it was great to talk through some of those aspects, and hopefully we can push things forward.
Yes, no doubt, and look forward to seeing some more of the work that you guys are doing out there in this space. So keep that up. For the listeners out there, if you've liked what you've heard today, please subscribe to the podcast. Feel free to share it with others, or even write a review. That we would appreciate your feedback as market researchers. Thanks for listening to the show. Now That's Significant.